Good morning. I'm Johnny Norton with Foam Insulation. We're over here on the west side of Binghamton. Beautiful day, just over by the Armory. And we got a fun day in store. Today we're dense packing walls. We'll be dense packing the first floor walls of a house that's from 1820. And it has no wall insulation. Stay tuned, you're gonna love it.
All this wiring going on up here. I'll take this piece off right here, and I'll just continue off of that piece all the way down to this wall. And then when I get to this corner here, I'll start from underneath the window.
Yeah, that's pretty high. Look where the brakes are. Right, we got a break here. Right. We got a break here, but there's wires and everything that's on it. And then you come over here is the next break. Right, and you look over, so you can't really get that panel off, right? You guys watching? Can't really get that panel off, right?
Exactly.
Then what we got here, the next break
Does it need to be?
is right here. So that's what today's about. I want you guys leaving, so you got to go out and do aluminum siding. You got it today. It should be 100% confident, right? Without a doubt. That's our goal today. We get half the house done, awesome. Get the whole house done, awesome. Is that the one we're taking off? Or we go, which one we're going to get? Oh, okay.
It's getting a little low, so it's depending on how they built the floor. It could be it's like a middle height. Sweet. Okay. I'm going to start with these little corner pieces that I have over here. These are kind of what hold all the aluminum siding pieces in on the corners. And I'm going to be taking off this corner, this course right here. So I'm going to start with the underneath. Underneath is actually kind of like this little tongue and groove, so it kind of catches in a way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flat bar and I'm just going to get the very lip of it in, just the very lip of it. Not gonna try to force it all the way in there. Sometimes you got to kind of shimmy it in, tap it in a little bit, and I can kind of pull it back ever so slightly, and it kind of starts lifting away from the original piece. This one's actually working really good with me. It's pretty it's actually pretty malleable. As you can see, it just kind of fell off right there. So I'm kind of bending these pieces as so, just so that I can kind of make it easier for me to put it back on. And now I got my main course right here. I'm going to go ahead and take this additional piece off at the top. Sometimes you got to squeeze your flat bar in on the side. Sometimes you kind of gotta kind of convince it. There we are. Okay. So that's all lifted out of place.
And they have a nail right in the place that's holding it right there.
Yeah.
It's a roofing nail they put in, and it goes right on the. That's why this one flopped out.
Yeah.
It didn't have its roofing nail on it.
There you go. Sweet.
And this is the Homosul board material, and this is what the backer board of the siding. Because aluminum's very flexible and it bends really easy, so they put this backer board to stiffen it up.
I basically got two tongue and grooves. I got one on the bottom and I got one on the top. So I'm going to start. You could start either or, bottom or top. Ultimately, they both have to become undone. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the bottom here, and I'm just going to. You can kind of see I'm not putting the whole flat bar in there. I'm just putting the very top in, and it's just popping off from the original piece. And that's all you got to do is just kind of bring it back a little bit. And there's your first piece. But after this, I like to bend this back just a little bit, because when we go to put this piece back on, we want this groove to catch with the tongue of the original piece so that it can go back into place nice and easy.
And it's like a little J channel right there.
Yep.
The way it comes across and hooks back up like
Right.
fish hook.
So that when I go to put that piece back on, it'll be nice and easy for me. I won't actually be bending that tongue back into the wrong place.
Push that cord back there.
So now we got the bottom out. I got that bent. I'm gonna go ahead to the top.
Same exact practice on the top.
Same thing. And you can kind of see with the flat bar, it's kind of pushing against the piece that we're taking out, and that duct tape is going to stop all the scratching from the onto that aluminum siding. It's pretty fragile. So go ahead like that.
And a lot of times the siding's chalky. You'll notice your hands are white.
Right. And just like I did with this bottom piece right here, I'm going to go ahead and bend this lip back too, so that this piece will catch back into place as well. So I'm going to go ahead, pull that back ever so slightly. Maybe take it a little bit off further so I can pull back some more. Pull that back a little bit. There we go. Alright, over here it's a little tricky. I don't know if you can kind of see with the camera there, but I'll lift this back up. Underneath here, you got some nails. So what I like to do is I'll take my flat bar and I'll have to grab my hammer. And this is where it kind of gets a little tricky, but if I can actually find the nail, I can squeeze that flat bar in between the nail and the aluminum siding. And what I'll do from there is I'll actually tap that nail out of place, and that'll actually free the piece of siding up. And as long as I can get all the nails out, I can get the siding off. And look at that. Looks like there's probably just one nail left, so find that last nail and that should be it. There we are. There we go.
So what we're actually doing, let's see that piece. What we're actually doing is we're using the flat bar to cut the nail flange.
Correct.
The nails are still in there, but we're using the flat bar to cut the nail flange. Because if we start reefing on it and trying to pull the nail, we're going to kill that locking mechanism right there. We could always use any of those other nail holes. This was only held on by two nails. So we could re-nail it right at the next one.
Correct. So that's basically a start of it.
And take your siding.
Mm-hmm.
After you get your piece of siding, it's very flimsy. This one's somewhat structured, but if you got an 8-footer, it'll be very flimsy. So take it, and we usually keep it right in line so you know where it goes back when you go down through your courses. And I turn it so that we don't scratch the face. Normally it would be right underneath the bush there. Then the same, right? Take off the next one,
Yep, and then the process continues.
And we lean it up against the house so that the wind doesn't get it. If we have it laying out in the yard, the wind will get it and it'll blow away.
And just like I said, as long as you got like that little bit in there, you don't got to have the whole flat bar in there. Just a little bit, and it'll pop off nice and easy. So once you get it started, you can kind of just tap it in a little bit. Go a few inches at a time, and you can actually see it. It'll start to lift up as you go a little, and then once you get to the very end of the course to your next seam,
Do what I did right here.
yeah, exactly. You can start bending it back a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with it, just a little bit, and that'll make it a lot easier for you to snug it back into place once you're all done. The only tricky part is going to be the nails. That's the real kicker. Exactly.
So what we're
That
doing
nail will
right
come out.
now is we're showing one of our newest installers on how to take off aluminum siding. Everybody gets afraid of aluminum siding. This is what we do every day. It's really simple once you learn the technique. So they get in with their flat bar and they're just going to pop it off the channel. You got to do it very carefully so you don't fold it. No pressure, Andy. But that's what we're doing now. We're going to take off one course of siding all the way down. Then once we get the course of siding off, we're going to use a hole hog. We're going to drill. And there's 9 times out of 10 when they frame the house, it's 16 on center. So every 16 inches there should be a stud. So what we're going to do is find the wall cavity that's 16 inches wide, and we're going to bore a 2 9/16 hole into the wall using a hole hog. Alright, when you're drilling through wood all day long, because aluminum siding, this house was from 1820. They did not have aluminum siding back then. So underneath it will be clapboard, which will be 3/4 inch wood. Sometimes you find rough cut underneath the house. Full planks, like over on the neighbor's porch. You could have something that's 1.5 inches thick. You don't want to be using an electric drill or handheld. You really need a beefy drill. The best ones we could find is the Milwaukee hole hogs. And the best bits we found have the carbide teeth on. This particular bit has 3 teeth. That's all it cuts with. This will actually cut through concrete. It'll cut through anything. Our biggest problem is nails. We're drilling through wood and we don't know where the nails are. So if we use the standard hole saw that has a little tiny teeth on it, you will ruin them. You'll go through probably 3 times, hit nail, and throw it away. So these are the perfect bits that we could use for weeks. Gabe, how often do we use the bits? When do we replace them?
Well, it really depends on how much teeth you have left. These teeth actually last quite a bit. They last a good long time.
Week, 2 weeks, month?
I'd say at least a month or so.
A month or so, depending on how much you hit with the carbides.
Yep.
And the drill is a very beefy drill.
It'll go through wood great. It's when it starts hitting the nails is when it'll really start wearing away.
Yep, the nails. But it's a beefy drill. It's very, very beefy. So you got to make sure you have a hold of it and hold it. One of the rookie mistakes, they'll be pushing and pushing and pushing, and the drill will come and hit them in the face. Everybody does it.
It's all right.
You learn once or twice. So you really got to hang on to the drill. And when they go into the wall, I'll show you. Usually go in at a little bit of an angle. But as you see here, what we have is the Homocell board. Then we're into the original clapboard. That's the existing siding of the house that they would paint and paint and paint. And because back in the day, they didn't know building science, they couldn't figure out why the paint was coming off the house so much. You'll see the paint flaking off, so people had to repaint the house every so many years. What it is moisture drive. From the wintertime, the warm, moist air from inside the house is warming the wood, and it's flaking the paint off. And but they came out with aluminum siding to fix that problem, where this siding's probably from the 60s and never was painted. And you always got to be careful on your first hole because you're kind of drilling blind here. So we're still not through. Okay. So we got drilled through here. We got our core there. We just popped that out. And we're through the clapboard. The clapboard is approximately 3/4 of an inch. That's the original siding. This particular house, we did blow it. We blew the second story, and I'm coming up with some cellulose already in there, but it's so loosely packed. What it is when we blew the second story already, some of it through nooks and crannies blew into the first floor. When we first drill our hole, I didn't want to go in the corner because there's obviously going to be framing there. So I picked under 16 inches to put my first hole. Then once we get our first hole, we'll use a probe and we're going to probe over to find the next stud. Sometimes there's 16 on center, sometimes there's a random stud. We don't really know, so we're going to use a probe. It's about 16 inches long, 20 inches, and we just go in at an angle. I like to give it a little bend to assist. And we just go over. Oh, it's stopping right there. Put your finger, pull it back, right there. So right here we have a stud that's stopping me from probing over. So our next hole will be drilled when they get the piece of siding off. Will be roughly right there. Then we'll probe. Same with this. We got to make sure there's not a little tiny cavity here, right? So we stick our probe in. Make sure we're going around the bend. Put your finger on it, and let's see. So right there, it stops. So that's telling me that this is double framed right here. We could drill a little test hole to see, but it's going to be a cavity about that big if it's there. It's just the way they frame the corner. Based on the year of the house, this corner may have a 4x4 post or 6x6. I do know that the rim joists, when we drilled through the dryer to the basement, from the basement to the outside, that the actual rim joist was that thick. So this could be used like the old building style where post and beam construction. Instead of traditional dimensional lumber, they built them more like barns back in the day, which 1820s house could be built that way. I know the rim joist is like an 8x8 piece of wood is what they use to build the rim joist. So once they get the siding off, we'll just come over and continue the same process and drill the next hole. Let's see how the guys are doing down here. Can't really tell with a gun, that's the problem. See how many revolutions we got?
Oh, okay, so just go until it stops like that.
Yeah, I don't like
So just move this one a little farther in. I got Mike drilling the holes right here. He's drilling into the wall, and what he's doing right now is trying to skip the stud base. So he's using his probe, measuring, and once he gets it in there, he'll be coming through right now, and you just got to watch it when you get so close. You can't push too hard. Yeah, you got a core. What did you find here, Mike? Look at this. The old lath and plaster back in the day. That's the old, when they plastered the wall over the lap. They got a ton of, it all just falls off over time, and that's why the lath on the walls falls down, because of the, it almost looks like mushrooms when you tear a house apart and you can see it from one side. Yeah. So this is telling me that this first floor is connected to definitely that second floor. So I think back in the day, we'll find out when we start running our dense pack hose up, and if we should stop where there should be a floor. But I think they used back in the day like 25-foot 2x4s And when they framed it, it's all the way up. So we'll find out when we get packing it.
Yeah, so now we're gonna go ahead, we'll put our siding back on. We got our homosome board back on there, so now we won't have a big gap in between the siding and the exterior wall. Now we're just gonna line it up, get it into place here. And I like to, like I talked about before, we like to try and bend this top lip down a little bit so that we can catch the next tongue and groove. I like to snug this piece in tight all the way up, and then once this is bent down a little bit, we can click it into place. All right, so now I got my piece bent back. I got this tight up. Now I can clip this back into place. It'll actually hold its place. And once that's actually clipped back into the tongue there, we can tap it back into place with the flat bar. So it's looking pretty good. the Homosorn board out. Otherwise it'll push this out and we won't be able to get our piece back in there nice and flat. So I'm gonna knock these in just a little bit. Okay. Put this back into place here. Push it a little bit more. There you go. Make sure that this is in the groove here. Go. And now you know that piece is in because you can see in the very bottom here it's tucked in nice and tight. Otherwise there would be a big gap in between, just like this piece right up here. So now that bottom piece is all nice and tight, I can kind of slap this back into place. That'll flip in. It's clipped in. I'm going to get some panel nails and a hammer. I'm going to put a few nails in just to secure it. I like to take a flat bar and try to even it out a little bit. Make it look nice and flat. And it's not coming off. Sweet. And that's how you put on aluminum siding.